Welcome to Chapter 8 of your Human Cultural Geography text, which is Crime and Punishment. So I want to talk a little bit about what you'll be discussing and reading about this chapter. I like what it says in the first part of the text. It says that crime and punishment, where people violate the rules and norms of society and how they are punished, is a matter of significant interest to geographers. Spatial perspectives and a variety of tools used by geographers are successfully applied to the study of crime, advancing both public safety and our understanding of the effects of criminal justice systems. So, crime and geography is really a new subfield that's really quite taken the crime world by storm, in a sense, partnering with different logistical organizations within the sheriff's departments, the LA County Police Department, and FBI, and then beyond, uh, plotting out areas of crime and then doing predictive analysis as to see which areas are more susceptible to certain types of crimes, tracking individuals or groups, perhaps gang activity, and where they're attacking, and to see if there are patterns, times, or locations in which that there has been effects within that. So it's become a very important piece of cultural and human geography in understanding that. Also, it's important to bring into the idea that when looking at crime, is also looking at then the rehabilitation afterwards, the prison system, and whether there is rehabilitation or not. So as you will learn through the book, you'll go through some of the landscapes and some of the different types of crimes, whether they be violent or non-violent crimes, being perhaps murder or assault. Looking at non-violent, being like car thefts. Are there certain areas in which car theft is more prominent? So there's a map that you'll look at and you'll see that car theft is more prominent in places like California than, say, places like in the middle of Montana. And why would that be the case? Well, I mean, the reality is more people in California own more expensive vehicles that are more likely to be stolen. Think about the prominence of Tesla vehicles. Would you find more of them in Montana or more in California? Then moving forward within looking at the geography of punishment is looking at the prison system. There once prisons used to be public funded institutions, but then they became private vendors as well. And by turning into a private vendor, they get paid based on how many people and how long are being within those institutions. So there are an incredible amount of politics and economics involved in prison systems. There's a video in the book also kind of talks about it. There was an organization that brought in children into prison systems because they got, there was more money involved by putting children into prison based on very, very small crimes. You're talking, 13-year-olds that steal bicycles, small things of that order. Instead of doing a rehabilitation center with them, but just putting them into a special type of, it's pay for kids in a sense, is that they were getting money from different government agencies to put children into prison systems, and to then see, is that really helping the situation, or is it actually going to be making things worse? Moving forward, we're looking at geographic profiling. How do we profile locations and areas and people? Looking at serial crime activities. Is there a way that we can predict that certain areas are more dangerous than others? And looking at also illegal and now legalized substances. Kind of going back also within to that idea of profiling is that there's also racial profiling, not just within people, but looking at landscapes. Broken windows may apply that this is not a safe location or region. Stop and frisk, even moving forward with topics that, again, are controversial and things to talk about. For many that are controversial, which perhaps they should not be, but such as Black Lives Matter. Bringing that into conversation and seeing, well, what about this and that, and comparing. I had a very, very interesting conversation with someone about Black Lives Matter, and bringing in the aspect of that. The question that was brought up in this conversation, this was a sociologist out of San Diego State, was about the Hispanic community in particular and the Latinos. And saying, well, why is it Black Lives Matter, not that type thing? And the conversation kind of led into the fact that most of the people that are fighting for this idea of fairness and equity, many of them may not be legal, and that they could then pursue and be picked up by organizations and be worse off than they are now. And so it's just very interesting when you start looking at not saying that that's a crime, but just saying that looking at this in that perspective, how do we approach this? How do we resolve it? How do we create an equitable landscape? That's something that's very, very prominent in our institutions, in academia, is being equitable, not by being equal and not by being fair, but by being equitable. How do we give everyone the same opportunity and give everyone the same opportunity to achieve, to be safe, to be represented, and to be acknowledged for what it is that they are? And I think that's a really important piece to bring in. And then lastly, wrapping up with just the idea of rehabilitation, is that many institutions, being prisons, may not have rehabilitation centers. Being able to provide people with an education. Perhaps someone goes in when they're 18 years old, but they're going to be released in their mid-20s with no tools of the trade, no skill sets, nothing. And so what is the likely of someone who got in trouble at 18 that was selling drugs, being released in their mid-20s, getting caught for the exact same thing when that's the only type of income that they know how to, to accrue? And so that's why many community colleges in the state have been partnering with prison systems to be able to offer basic core academic courses, to provide inmates with an opportunity for a career outside, once they've been released. So as an example, Santa Monica City College was doing a program where they're teaching inmates on solar panel installation on homes. So that way someone who left, who may have perhaps had a very minor infraction, is why they're in prison, when they left jail or prison, they could then get a job working for different solar companies installing solar panels by teaching them a trade and providing opportunities of pure rehabilitation by giving people an opportunity to make a difference and to not then be a society problem in that sense. So anyway, I hope that you enjoy this topic. I have also included some great YouTube TED Talks videos that I thought were quite interesting to kind of bring it into full round. And this relates to everyone. We all live in an area that can deal with different types of crime, and we're studying it. And what does that do once we study it? How can we fix it? How can we create programs that are early on that help provide people tools? Think about what causes crime. What are the true reasons of crime? Why do people commit them? And then you start realizing that it's more of a cultural opportunity for success. We can really provide tools for people very young at age, to do better, to be able to access a community college, to be able to move forward without student debt. So that way they're not forced to do things that are illegal in order to make ends meet or to reach whatever goal it is that they're trying to achieve. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoy this text, and we'll talk to you soon.